I'm Emily Hills. I'm the director of Urban Reap at Mission Waco.
Awesome. Why don't we start a little brief day in the life at Urban Reap? So you're, waking up, coming to work, arriving. What's that kind of look like?
Yeah, so one of the things I really like about working at Urban Reap is literally every day is different. So it depends on what's happening in the season. During our busiest seasons, like spring and fall, we tend to have a lot of events that we're planning for. Our garden center sales are kind of priority. We have a lot of customers that come through. So it really just depends on the day of the week even. So for example, on a day that we're open, we want to make sure that garden center is covered, that we're able to greet people, help them out, answer any questions. But there's also, I forgot about the car.
No,
But there's also the fact that we have a lot of events that we're planning for. We have a lot of different, honestly, for me, a lot of it's been partnership management of trying to make sure that we're following up with our commitments with our partners and that we're on track with some of the things that we've said that we're going to do. So it could literally be something any day. And then we also have a lot of equipment that could break. So sometimes it's troubleshooting our compost machine. Right now compost machine's not really working. So right now we have to troubleshoot that and figure out how to problem solve. We have harvest days. So that's one of the fun things about Urban Reap is it literally could be, it's different every day, and that's something I really enjoy about it.
Would you say is your favorite part of the job if you had to choose one?
My favorite part of the job. This seems really silly, but I love that I'm outside all the time. Over the summer, I had got to office in an office, which was really important because it was really hot and we didn't have any cooling system. But I missed being able to see plants. The office I was in has no windows to the outside, and so I love being able to be outside. And I also really love the fact that I get to interact with so many different people. Today I just had a tour for a bunch of middle schoolers and they were so much fun. Yesterday evening, we did our last session for the youth program and they got to make pizza and they had so much fun with it, little tortilla pizzas. And I find that the connections with people really cool to figure out how I can share my love for being outside with other people and seeing how contagious it really can be.
So you mentioned earlier that you lived in New York.
I did, yes.
For a while. How did that experience in the city kind of shape the way you felt about plants or the natural world and connecting with that?
Yeah, is it okay if I give you kind of the winding arc of my life? So I actually grew up in Waco. My dad was Air Force, so we didn't land here until grade school. So none of my parents are from here, and grew up in Waco, and I was so ready to leave. I was not going to Baylor. I graduated high school. I went to school in St. Louis, which is kind of a middle-sized city, and I really enjoyed kind of that introduction to a bigger city, and seeing how they still engage with nature. There's still parks everywhere. There's still a lot to do. And then after college, I went to Peace Corps in Panama, and so then I was very much outside. I was very rural. I lived there for 3.5 years. And you ask about how this impacted my interaction with the environment. One of the things I found so eye-opening, we are so insulated here in the United States from our environment. It's so easy for us to just get into a car, get into our house and just not be outside anymore. And that's not the case in Panama because where I lived, they don't have air conditioning, so everything's kind of is open. And they just know they know their environment so much better. They can name all the birds. They know what all the plants do. They know which paths to take. And we're so isolated from that natural understanding. And so going from that, I then went to New York City, which was a very big change. And so the reason why I wanted to explain Panama first is because going from Panama to New York City was such a culture shock But at the same time, it was great to see how similar things are. So yes, in many ways it's much more urban, so a little bit more separated from their environment, but at the same time in New York City they also a lot of times don't have air conditioning.
Yeah.
And what you do in the summer is you sit on your front stoop, you're out in the community, you're outside, and so maybe they don't know what trees are on their block, but they're still engaging in their environment. And there's so much green space in New York City, and having that be something that's not ever present made it very valuable, made it something that was really cool to see. How can we cultivate that? And people wanted it. They wanted that green space because they didn't have it. And so I think both of those places were pretty instrumental in helping to shape how I view my space.
Yeah. Thinking about the desire for a green space in an urban environment such as New York, how do you think that translates to Waco, a place that has more green spaces close, maybe, and there's more trees, but
yeah, it's interesting because Waco has, in some senses, Waco has more access and it has less. When I lived in New York City, I could walk within a couple blocks to 3 different parks, and they were actual parks. There would be trees, there was shrubbery. There'd be trees, there would be all of this nature. There was a deer in one of the parks, and here, because it's close, it's not there. It's not cultivated because you could get it. And we do have some amazing parks. Cameron Park is amazing space, and there's a lot of really fabulous parks that are dotted around the city. But it's interesting to see the difference in culture, because there's in New York City, you have to be in other people's business because there's no place to get away. So community gardens are so common. Here, community gardens don't work. And I think in part it's because people don't necessarily need them. And culturally, we're able to get away. So this isn't meant to be any sort of indictment on Waco culture. It's just very different because we have our homes and our backyards where we can get green space, where we can get gardens. There's not necessarily as much need for that community space as there is in New York City. At the same time, there are still ways that can exist here, and that has existed. I know I've seen a lot of cool success with gardens at churches. I've seen cool successes with gardens at schools as being a kind of inspiration or spaces for people to really learn and appreciate that space. And I think there's some cool people doing cool things here in Waco to connect people to the green spaces we do have. I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble for that answer.
That was
Everybody's like, oh, New York City. It's cool, okay?
We had a good time. But do you think thinking about the green spaces and people in them is they just don't know that it's something that would be for some people? Do they think they just it's a lack of awareness that it would make their lives better in some way? You know what I mean?
I think that what it comes down to, I don't know. I won't be that definitive about it. I think something that definitely influences it is the fact that it's not as absent. So, you call New York City the concrete jungle. I probably shouldn't emphasize so much about New York City. Here in Waco, because there is that opportunity to get space, some form or fashion, it's not necessarily a scarcity in the way that it is in other cities. And so even though I think it can be a scarcity for some people, it's not culturally, it's not systematically a scarcity. And so I think that impacts how we as a culture and as a community prioritize green spaces.
Yeah, wow.
Especially if you think about I'm going to get into trouble. If you think about who makes decisions, it's often people who have really nice backyards.
Yeah.
So they're not really worried about it. But I drive down Waco Drive, and man, it's I want more trees on Waco Drive. That could be such a pretty boulevard.
Yep.
But it costs so much money to just plant trees. So we just don't prioritize it. We prioritize other things.
Yeah. Do you have any like personal favorite memories here, or like funny moments? Could be meaningful
At Urban
things.
Reap?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So, if I'm going to talk about personal favorites, obviously I really love, I think kids are so fun. I really love working with the youth and the children, and we partner with after school programs, and I love working with them. They're so, they have such great energy, and they're definitely a handful, but they're so intelligent in such an interesting way, and I love to see their perspectives and how they are unique and innovative. And I guess one of them is there's this one youth, and the entire semester I couldn't tell if she couldn't tell if she was having a good time or not the entire semester, but you just stick with it. Youth are youth, so you just like, okay, you're middle schooler, let's keep going. And at the very end of the semester, she came up to me and she's like, you're my favorite, and then walked away. And I was like, well, I really would have appreciated that earlier, but thanks. And she did come back, and every time I see her, we get to talk. And so I really love that. And some of her like siblings and cousins have come throughout, and I just really like the relationships that I've been able to build with them. Another personal favorite, I have to talk about our cats. We have had cats come and go, and they've all been fabulous. And we had one cat, Tomato, and she was lovely. And not sure what happened to her, but she would just like you would find her asleep in the like craziest spots. And she was so sweet, so friendly. She would greet everyone who came in. We've had a couple of other cats come in, and we currently have one cat that I'm hoping sticks around. And I love how we have a pretty fun team. And some of the people on our team love cats, and some of them are more dog people or not animal people. But like all of us tend to take care of the cat. Like we always find a way to take care of the cat. And so I love that. And the cat often becomes a little mini mascot for a moment. And people come in and they will ask about the cat. Oh, is the cat still here? And I just love how cats can be, I mean, there was a Chihuahua that did it too, but I love how animals can just be kind of those little unifying things for people too.